Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wednesdays with Ra. It's Maggie and I, and today is episode 11. We're going to be talking with the Magdalene Collective. Tomorrow is the Feast of Magdalene. So we're going to do. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wednesdays with Ra. It's Meg. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. So sorry, I'll do better next time. So we're going to do a little bit of channeling and some activation and some codes today. But before we get into that, we thought it would be really interesting just to tell you guys a bit about our daily life and what the future of our Wednesdays with Ra holds. So Maggie and I have decided that we are going to do every other Wednesday with you guys with Wednesdays with Ra. And it's not because we don't want to, it's not because we don't want to hang out with you guys. It's a simple aspect of balancing our lives. And so we thought it'd be really interesting to let you guys know kind of what we end up trying to balance on a daily basis, because lately we have been pretty worn out. And so just as an example, for today, everything that was happening in between, I still have to run a business. So that's never easy to do it. And it's not like we have tons of people helping us run the business. It's my husband and I. And so on top of that, Maggie and I have to do these missions, which we go on rather frequently. And we're actually behind because we've been so exhausted. And these missions, it's hard to explain what they are, but in order for us to be able to go on these missions, they have to update us, but they don't just hand us the information. They make our brains work. So in between me answering emails and shipping, we are constantly talking with one another and trying to figure out what our next step is, what they're trying to explain. And then on top of that today, on top of all of that today, I had Harlan from the Council of Wonders with me last night and today, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he was like, this auction is coming up and I need you to get this relic so it doesn't fall into the hands of those who don't have the highest timeline on order. So in between all of this, somehow we have to figure out how to get work done on both sectors, still have family time, and not be completely exhausted in the process of it. And it never stops for us. We don't really get to rest. I know that sounds terrible, but we do try the best that we can. But like, for example, last night I had four different beings having conversations with me, prepping me for today. So that cuts into my sleep. And then on top of that, I have to do astral meetings and I have to do astral life things that I'm connected to just because of the way my brain is all wired. And Maggie is very much the same way. So I don't know, do you want to like go into a bit about how we have to figure some of these things out? Like, I wish they could just say, hey guys, this is your, file folder, and they slam it on the desk and they're like, this is what you need to know and I'll get to it. But it's not all in the file folder. We have bits and pieces. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, if only it were as easy as them downloading an entire set of information into our minds and we could understand what we need to do going forward and we had a full picture of things. But it doesn't typically happen like that. For example, when we started working with the Magdalene Collective, probably a few months ago, somebody showed us an image of a chalice in our brain. And then we had to figure out, what does the chalice mean? And go through all of these scenarios until we finally hit on the Magdalene Collective. And then from there, we have to learn, well, how is the chalice and the Magdalene Collective related? It's like they give us one breadcrumb at a time where we have to figure out one breadcrumb and how it leads to the next and how it leads to the next. So it's very much very, very fragmented when we first get information, and it often takes hours or even days to put together. an image of a mission that needs to be worked on or a collective that we need to speak to and why. Because I think that's probably how spirit speaks to everybody. You know, unless you dig for things, they'll give you a starting point, but you as a human, you have to do the work of uncovering things on your own. It's the law of free will that they can't give everything straight to you. It's our free will to either find out more or be content with what we have. So Temple and I are two people who are very much, we like to be detectives about things, and we like to be finding different layers for things. And because we are that way, they give us a lot of work to do, because they know that we do go down these tunnels. And on top of that, once we finish the mission or whatever, if we're working in a timeline where it's sensitive or where an oppositional force doesn't like us in that timeline. The other night we were doing a mission, and we both got a bit poisoned in the work that we were doing. We've been dealing with the physical repercussions of that for the last few days. And we just figured out this morning what happened off of another weird set of breadcrumbs that they gave us. So it never really stops, and it's a constant thing when we're immersed in this. And they've been asking that a lot of work of us lately, so it's tiring, especially for Temple to deal with it, and she has to manage her business, and I channel for clients, and I have a family here too. There's not really a spare moment to think in the day. We're either working with our families or we're working with each other to further our spiritual information or our spiritual missions.
Right. And then sometimes when we're completely exhausted, they will come through and they will say, just rest tonight. Or sometimes we're like, we have this, so Father Ra, like we have this piece and we have this piece, but we're not saying how they come together. And then sometimes if he's able, he'll give us like a connecting piece, but we still have to put everything together. Or many times he's like, this is something that you two need to figure out. I can't help you with it. The clues are there. You have to work through it. And so it's not that we don't enjoy our work. We do enjoy our work, but I think like everybody who has their own missions and they're working in different realms every day, it's tiring on the human body and on the human brain. And especially then to come out of some of these timelines where even though we have help doing what we need to do, there's like things that we couldn't have known at the time. So we have to be very careful. This is why we talk about energy all the time, because we have to be very careful of knowing exactly where our energy is, what it's doing, who's on our energy field, and everything incorporated in that in order to keep our human here safe. Because even though we're jumping timelines together, we're working within different spheres, different dimensions, different densities, everything is attached back to our human. So if we leave one small piece open where there's a back door that they can easily get to us, then we're down for the count. And then we still have to keep going and like resting in between. And so it's just, we are behind on our work. And so for that reason, we are going to move these to every other Wednesday. And so we still love you guys and we hope you will join us. But we'll have to see what it's like after we get our work caught up. It's very, when you hear Ross say, well, ladies, the last one got put off for so-and-so, so now you have them, they're backed up. Like, that's not a good thing to hear. It's not a good thing to hear, So with that said, I don't know if you guys have questions about that. Maggie and I are more than happy to explain a bit more. If you are confused about things or have questions, if we can explain more, we are more than happy to. So just put that in the chat. But then other than that, do you want to start on the Magdalene stuff? Or actually, before we start, today is like my day of griping, I guess. Before we start on that, I just want to, I do keep tabs on the spiritual communities and like light worker groups and stuff. And I don't quite understand some of the posts that I see where if it's something that the teachers have failed in explaining to everybody that they're here in the third dimension, they may be able to, at times, if they work hard, access fourth dimensional energies. But there's a big difference between accessing fourth dimensional energies and living in the fourth dimension, let alone reading posts of people saying that they are ready now to move from the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension. Everybody can have their own world. I'm not trying to shoot down anybody's world, but let's use science here for just a second. So if the third dimension is dimensional space, like that's why we have 3D things, they're tangible, right? Fourth dimension is time. So if somebody actually lived in the fourth dimension, like some of our Palladian friends, they would have access to anything and everything that is time, forwards, backwards, time. They have access to time. So unless people actually are in the fourth dimension, which then we wouldn't in the third dimension really be able to see them because they would be invisible to us unless they chose to show themselves to us. And unless we in the third dimension here have access to time, then there's no way you're going to skip from the third dimension to the fifth dimension, which is space in 5 dimensions. If you can't have a conceptual understanding of what space would be like in fourth dimensions, let alone the own dimension that people are living in their third dimension, they're not heading to the fifth dimension. I'm sorry to say, like, it doesn't work that way. There's no magical thing out there that is just going to clear everybody off this planet and move everybody to like the fifth dimension. That's why we here as light workers are here to do the hard work to get people to understand not only what the dimensions are, but what happens when you are able to pull fourth dimensional energy. So when we pull fourth dimensional energy in this house and we're able to do it in this house, it means that because I know how, sometimes, just sometimes, not all the times, I'm able to manipulate time. But as soon as I run out that door, I'm stuck back in the 3D time. So that's not me accessing the fourth dimension. That's me accessing fourth dimensional energies and allowing it to overlap on my third dimension and me staying in fourth dimensional energies, not me staying in the fourth dimension. There is a difference. So I think that is me getting off my soapbox. I just want people to understand that there's a reason everybody is here working so hard. Like, let's be in the reality of what's going on so we can better get through the now moment so we can have a brighter future, not sitting here doing nothing and then all of a sudden being like, oh, I'm just waiting to hop into the fifth dimension. That's not how it works. In fact, even to access fourth dimensional energies, you need some of that dormant DNA. You need some of that coded and turned on. And there's certain DNA that's not even available in the third dimension that would have to be activated in the fourth dimension for anyone to even get that far. And there's like one person, I think, on this whole planet that has that as a human, like, activated. It's not something that just everybody has. So I'm okay with everybody having their own little worlds, but I think there comes a time and a place where you're faced with the decision, like, do you just want to be in this world and live the way it is, or do you want to like progress in a tangible way where there's, you know, like, we know what's involved with like dimensions and stuff. So again, it's free will. Everybody can do what they want here, but in case anybody was confused about how that whole dimensional hopping thing works, hopefully I've helped. So with that said, we probably have like no viewers at all. All right, so let's switch gears now that I'm off my soapbox, and let's talk about the Magdalene Collective and the Feast of the Magdalene. Do you want to talk a bit about that, Maggie? Or
personally, I just learned about the Feast of the Magdalene today. I didn't know that it was a holiday that the church celebrated, and I'm sure the church's understanding of Mary Magdalene in many cases is much different than our or your understanding of her. She is someone who has been shrouded by mystery in many ways, and I think that most people don't have a full understanding of who she is or was, and everything that she stood for and everything that she did, because these things have been purposely hid by history. Mary Magdalene herself and the Magdalene Collective as well. But I think what Temple was just saying segues nicely into it. I can't speak, like I said, to the Feast of Magdalene and what that means for the people who celebrate it. But as far as I know, with the Magdalene Collective, they have a large role in understanding the divine feminine and the divine feminine codes, which we've talked about before and we've recently received back and shared back with you guys to the extent that we can so far. And I think a lot of what the divine feminine has to do in relation to Mary Magdalene is she knew secrets about how to use higher energies, how to harness the elemental energies, how to harness the otherworldly energies and apply them for good in the world. I think she was probably very much a sorceress and a magician. This is what they're telling me right now. And she lived in the third dimension just like we did. She wasn't a fourth dimensional being or a fifth dimensional being. She was a third dimensional being who, through her knowledge, through her inherent divine feminine wisdom, was able to use these forces, apply them for healing, apply them for betterment, apply them to uplift the collective. And I think that's what the ascension of the divine feminine is doing right now, especially as we're in the height of summer, receiving all of these high energies. I think that as far as I'm feeling, that is what she's wanting to share with us. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Temple.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. It speaks a lot about me and my soapbox about how important it is to be here in the third dimension. And if you do your work well and you stick with it, then you have these abilities to help heal people in the third dimension. You can pull these energies from the other dimensions to help in your third dimension. And I think that's perfect. That's a great example. If you guys are interested in like the gospel of Mary Magdalene, I found this kind of interesting. I have never read the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, but supposedly it was discovered in 1896. And it was discovered in a 5th century papyrus codex that was written in a specific form of Coptic. And so if you have had access to this Gospel of Mary, or if you have read some of it, I don't even know if I don't know, I should have looked. I don't know if it's available for mass consumption or if it's something that's kind of kept under wraps. I'm not really sure because I don't know much about the Catholic. I know they have like different books than like the Lutherans have in their Bibles and things. So, but another thing I thought was really interesting was that she is the saint of like apothecaries and medicines and things like that, which go in really well to what I do for a living. And that she is the example of feminine leadership and great love. And I think that's really important as we start to focus on the collective and her as well. So
I think the leadership aspect is really important at this time, this year, in this now. They were talking about that to me a bit when you were talking. It's like you were saying before, you can't just be content in sitting around and waiting for the 5th dimension to fall upon you. As wonderful as that would be, it may happen for some humans in the future, but we didn't come here to have that happen to us. We came here to help that process for those around us, for those who come after us. We are kind of the cogs in the machine pushing this whole thing forward. And if we're not moving, the ascension is not moving. We can't be stagnant. As tiring as that can be sometimes, and as taxing as it can be for those of you who understand, because you're light workers and you're tired and you're taxed right now because we're being asked to do a lot in the physical world, even more in the astral plane in our sleep time. We're doing so much right now. But I think what the Magdalene Collective wants us to understand is, especially those of you who are women out there, it's a time to step into your power, to step into a role of strong leadership, to be an example moving forward, to shine your light brightly, because so much of this ascension that's happening, this ascension to the 5th dimension, as they often call it, is is dependent on the feminine ascending and the feminine stepping into her leadership role. And I know that people often talk about Mary Magdalene and the Magdalene Collective in terms of their great love, their nurturing. Yes, that's who she is, that's what they are, but also it's this leadership, it's this fierceness that a lot of women aren't conditioned into, they're not trained into, but is necessary at these times, especially when so many things come to oppose women. And I don't mean to say that in a way that leaves out men, but these are truths that apply to women. And if we're talking about the Magdalene Collective today, they speak to a lot of these things. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Temple.
Yeah, and this actually goes back to our episode 10, where we talked about revealing the unseen attachments and calling back your power. So she stands as a strong divine feminine in that aspect where she called back her power. She wasn't giving her power away. She was very aware of where her power stood. And in fact, she was so aware of it that the church had to make her seem as she was a fallen woman, or, when that really wasn't the case, because she was so strong in her power and she knew who she was, and she stood strong in that. And so that's my hope for all of the divine feminines and divine masculines, but today we're kind of focusing on the divine feminines, is that you live your life out in the open, knowing exactly who you are, knowing that you aren't required to have constant attachments on you pulling your energy. You can be sovereign in yourself, and you can stand tall in who you are and demand that any attachments and any leaking energy be taken away, returned to sender, or purified, and actually call back your power and stand strong in that. So it's all about surrendering. Again, it's been a big topic lately.
I agree. And it's easy to talk about the Magdalene Collective and, Mary Magdalene, women who we talk about in this light, ascended females, in terms of their loving, nurturing, and that those are their main aspects. People don't talk about so much the leadership and all of the trials that these women push through. We know that a lot of these women were oppressed, but we hear about the oppression. We don't hear about the fire. We don't hear about their strength. We don't hear about what they had within them to push through all of that to get where they got to go and get ascended in the way that they are. The narrative is switched up where you see them as these martyrs, and that's not what women are. That's not how we should see ourselves, and that's the narrative that needs to shift right now. It's not oppression, it's strength, it's grit, it's power, it's leadership, it's all of these powerful things that don't put us down here but lift us up here.
Right, exactly. That was really well said. I'm just looking through our notes to see. Here we have a note from episode 10 that talks about listening to your body and not the outside world. And I think that's not just in the body, but that's what she did. Like, she didn't listen to the others. She knew what she was there to do. And she is a great example of compassion and love and following through on her missions, even though it wasn't always easy. So do you, are they there? Would they like to channel today?
I feel them with you. I don't feel them with me. But if you
get
something different.
I knew you were going to say that, but I don't want to channel.
You don't have to. We can
well, let me just tap in and see. I'm afraid I might get on a soapbox. Okay. We are the Magdalene Collective. We are happy to be here with you today, to speak to you today. We bring you blessings and energies of great peace, great hope, great prosperity, and great, what's the word? Fundamental understanding of self. As a collective, many of you know who we are as we speak through many channels. Today, however, instead of focusing on the collective, we would like to focus on the inversions of what Mary Magdalene was versus what the current society has made her out to be. Now, this has been spoken about previously in the earlier session of this recording. However, we do want to put an emphasis on the fact that, like many women on your planet, their true history and their true sacrifices and their true strength has been hidden, or worse, wiped away from the records. This is the case with Mary Magdalene herself. And only part of the collective is now at that point where they're able to tap in to this divine feminine energy and really understand what the Holy Grail means. It's just like they hung up the phone. Hang on. They just said there is interference there. Okay. All right. We are sorry for the interruption. We do have a bit of interference on our end. What we want to mention about the Holy Grail is that the Holy Grail is neither a physical cup, nor does it have to do with the aspects of just the masculine. This Holy Grail is the idea of what a true divine feminine is, standing next to the true divine masculine, where each is in equal energy, each is in equal position to understand the gifts and talents of the other. The Holy Grail is the concept of what it truly means to be a divine feminine and what energies that can birth within the planet and on the planet. As you see, a true divine feminine has great connections with nature, has great connections with the elements, can help her husband in various ways by asking Gaia, asking the animals, asking the fish, asking the waters, asking the air to work side by side. And in commanding these and commanding your sovereign self, both are equal in the divine I. For you see, the reason that Mary Magdalene was finally given a day is to promote her, or to give her her just dues and accept that she is now equal with the apostles. So although this may not seem important, this is a huge stride in the concepts of learning what the real divine feminine is on your planet. The day that Mary Magdalene has been given, she now rises up in equal status to those divine masculines that have previously received all of the attention and stories. For there are many stories and much to learn once the real story of Magdalene can be told. And we are happy to say that is in the near future. This is the main topic we wanted to bring up today. We thank you for allowing us to speak, and we shall take our leave, but we will be here if any questions arise. Much love to you, my children.
Thank you so much.
For it is you on this planet now who are in charge of facilitating the correct history and the correct energies to turn the idea of what a divine feminine is back into the essence and the pure spiritual energy of what she was meant to be. Many blessings and much love.
That was beautiful.
Thanks.
I think it was very well said too. I don't think that there are any profound secrets right now that need to be revealed. I think now is a time where we've received so much energy, we've let go of so much baggage, that the duty is on us now to rise and equal and to balance the feminine with the masculine. And that's not something that's really magic or esoteric. That's something that's human at this point. We have what it takes. We've all gone through so many trials, and now we've earned this place, and we've built this energy to step up and walk alongside together, both halves balanced. I think that was said beautifully.
And I think the way in which they were talking about it stems from her devotion to love and her devotion to, like standing up to the masculine isn't, I think in the way in which they mention that it should happen, it isn't about, I don't know how to put this in words. I need the words. It isn't about leading with a big stick. It's about what? Hang on just a second. It isn't leading about with a big stick. It's leaning your stick on your shoulders and quietly commanding your way to equality without, I think what it is they're saying that, like, it's not about violence or pitting one against the other. It's about recognizing where those spells and where those pitfalls are, to navigate around them with the greatest love while not sacrificing any of your self-worth, where you can stand in your knowing of who you are and why you're here and what you have to offer in the divine feminine energies. Oh, speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yes. We've been talking about that recently, and
I
I
know.
think that's really a divine feminine power. The divine feminine in her exaltation does not need to wave around a big stick or make a show of power, because she knows that she has the forces of the earth behind her. She has the elemental forces, she has the forces of nature. And if she understands how to wield her power correctly and in its highest aspects, those she can command those elements to do her bidding for her. She doesn't have to say a word, because those energies speak for themselves and they move things for her on her behalf. So she doesn't have to lift a finger. She knows how connected she is to all of these things, and she calls them forward and moves them, in the directions that she would like.
Which is exactly what we do in our missions. It just dawned on me.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's true.
So I can see now how this all fits in together. How we're learning how to use those innate abilities. You all have them. It's not like they might want you to think that you don't have them, or you don't have access to them, or they've been stripped from you, but that's not true. You have them. They just are this elusive thing that they want you to think isn't really there, but it is. And once you command them and reintegrate yourself with them, you will know definitely that you have them and be able to use them. And then it's about using them in the proper manner. You don't command lightning to strike. I don't know. I just see this picture of some woman who is so angry and she commands lightning to, take out so and so. But that's not what we're talking about here.
No, and the power of anger is nothing compared to the power of love, and that's why they exalt Mary Magdalene as being this such a woman of nurturing, a woman of great, great love, because it's with the energy of love, using that as a catalyst to move these other things, that great things really happen. Moving things with any lower emotions, the number one, the effect is less, and number two, it's not what any of us are here to do.
This reminds me of the stuff that we were going through today. So going back to some of the hardships that Maggie and I endure while we go through this stuff, we had some stuff injected into us that you have two options to look at. Number one is it's bad. Like it causes all kinds of chaos within your body and slowly breaks you down. It's bad. But the specific elemental thing that was put into us also can be reprogrammed and can be beneficial. And so that's how we've taken to look at it. And that's what we're working on. And so it's like with anything, we're not always in charge of, we're in charge of ourselves, but it's really hard to always be in charge of everything around you. And while we do our best, we're still human. So sometimes things slip in. But it's then how you address those situations that really show your growth on the scale, And so something that they thought was just going to ravage us and make us very ill, now we're turning into a power.
Exactly. So. And everybody has something they can relate to that. All of us have had bad things happen in our lives. All of us have gone through traumas, but in many cases, I'm sure most of you would say, well, I'm glad that I went through those things because they taught me compassion, or they taught me empathy, or they made me so strong. So I think that's a particularly feminine power too. I mean, both sexes can do it, but I think turning the poison into the antidote is something that's a very, very powerful tool when you experience something negative or something negative happens to you. there's, I would say, most all times a way to turn that thing into gold and use it for your favor.
Right. And I think that is something that Mary Magdalene probably was very good at.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the time comes where we get to hear the rest of the story, it will be very interesting to me. So we already know that her and her collective have a lot to do with the divine feminine coding. And so it'll be very interesting as this goes along, the stuff that we're going to learn about in relation to this. The one thing we wanted to do with you guys tonight yet was we wanted to give you guys an activation or some codes. And then, but we don't really know who's going to come forward and do that. We just told that they would be there and they would have something for us. So let me just see if we can tap in and.
I feel the Grandmother Collective with me, the Crone Collective. I'm sure the Magdalene Collective is still here. Right. I think this energy will probably be a combination of the many feminine collectives that are working with you and with Gaia right now and who have worked with us in the past.
Yep. So what they were telling me is that they would like to give activations and codes. The Magdalene Collective would for purifying the heart and also helping to purify the idea of what the divine masculine or the divine feminine is said to be versus what she really is. And this, I think, again, goes back to,
yes,
she's said to be a prostitute. What is she really? Not a prostitute. Okay. So, so I think we will move on to the codes next. What do you think?
Yes, I feel that really strongly. I feel that, especially, for women, I just want to, there's telling me to say this. Many things, like, for example, the word prostitute is seen as something negative and something shameful and something lowly to be. Temple and I talk about this all the time. In the past, many of the women who had the job of prostitute or the role of prostitute with other titles or whatever, they were some of the most powerful women around because they knew how to wield their sexuality to climb the ladder and have influence and improve their own lives. And it was, people may have labeled them as things and people may have turned that profession into something that's shameful and lowly, but they were using what they had to get where they wanted to go. And there's nothing shameful about that, in my opinion. A lot of the ways that we feel about ourselves, we feel that certain powers that we have or certain ways that we are have this negative spin on them. But there's always another side to the coin. And in a lot of these cases, you think that to be a powerful woman means that you have to be masculine or you have to be harsh or you have to be abrasive. And to carry that role has those negative connotations. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So I really do feel you saying that, Temple. They're here to flip some of these things around in our heart about how we label ourselves and how we put our energy into the world and how we feel about that.
Exactly. It's the same thing with being labeled a witch, or a cunning woman. Historically, it's all about any time that a woman would step into her power, it would have to get shut down. Mm-hmm. And so all of the words or labels that we can think of in our modern society that have negative connotations were more than likely put there by the masculines, who are also inverted, so they need help too, to keep the women from realizing all they are, from realizing all the power that they hold. Heaven forbid a woman want to use nature to help heal someone they love or help heal people in their town, or, heaven forbid, like a woman have their own say over what to do with their body. Mm-hmm. Heaven forbid that would happen. Like, we have to keep them way down here, but things are changing. And so we want to give you guys the codes and the activations needed to help facilitate the change in a greater way, because there's a lot that needs to there's a lot of things that need to happen and to be changed. And we can only start one step at a time. And this harkens back to me on the soapbox of why I think it's so important that we keep going and we understand the dimension within which we're working and understand ourselves enough to know where we're pulling things from to work in this dimension, not wishing our lives away that we were in a different dimension that you can't even conceptualize, because how can you conceptualize what space in 5 dimensions is? Most of us live with space in 3 dimensions. So, okay. All right, again, guys, we do this. If you hang out with us, you should know, feet on the floor, hands up.
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I think we should let the grandmothers go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shulu kashata la kete shutu. Le shete kete tustakata shutu kushata teata tusatu. Musha leete tutuma la kasha tukusa tikite anemete. La hata sukushate le ikostato tukutusiti. Luha shate le ekeshate le keshete. Mulu shatu kusutu kushutu la kashate. Isha teleshete, bula yashutu kushtata, bula shaleatsata, usha teleshete pula hata sakushwa la pulaeta, aya hota la hashatu kushata paya shata, isha tati hiti la hapatuhu yashati, yanala shatuhu katala shikitete, potala aseta la aseta, ula eseti ila eshete katepete. Mushatele ishata katatu kushatikiti. Malohule esete. Bala eshasata. Muhashatata. Ikala oshata achata. Ikata la achatata uhata kata. Uhate titiatata tuhoto. Namaste.
La sana diato buko kolo onut I shikiti ikiana. Dili iwu unutu ya buko, uno ya voto jok. Yatala anania te yoko. Moso totoni atiki kia taposko no lo poto. Mapia poto, pakili isanania. Monolo ya potiaskana. Nakata iskata upotokolo. Poto oskonolo, laku oshokotobo, konaniaskata, malihiti diaskata tata tudiatanaska, dolole poto tudiatanaska tata. Nalaskatiato tudiata tata. Poskotonia la pipota, naskatia shakatana, apopoloro, lolea la leananda, ololea la leatosko, la piato cosco, tono colopiata, yaskatadiataka, iatakana, yaskatadiata, yaskatata, Puskutaria la tatariana tiata, scutoria la po, Tititia natskata, tukania, tutaria titia, rekataskaria, tutia, pututia, tiata, kututia, buskutuna la ata taskata, tiata, colo, oshukotona, patuskotia, maskataria la ata caniata skata, pututia, pononokia la tiata, scania, putocopolia, ducotania la ana, nalia posco. Naskatia poshokotonia moskoto tototia tototia Tatia taskata tatanaskata, Dulapia pushkanania, Molopia papiashkata, Ta ia anat, iat ianat, ut, mututia tata, ututia taskanata, Dulkalapata askata, Tutupukono oskoshkata, Nolopia totodiamo, Nala atia takaskata, Totodamatata, Puskutoto. Botata, 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 totia, totia, pototia, totia, skuto, potata, botatia, 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 tatiscataria, tototia, clapatia, tikia, tutia, totia, ticastatia, totia, potia, gut, mascatia, totia, put. Mascatia, totia, gut, bascatia, tatia, cutotia, put. Daskatia teatro tukulopatia puskutala potukonolo otokos kentetia kaladianes ketia to pushkutot tutotia tata tutotia tata tutotia tutotia tata tia tutotia tata tutotia tata tutotia tata. Wasatakana shakumo to poloko to tias katatia. Wasatamo kolo pia taskatani ala poto kushukoto. Nini ata te kalata, niata tata kuskutoto, nalia poto, maskatatia, nala hiaskata. Namaste. I feel like they were really gentle, but like really fierce.
Yeah, I feel like that too. The Spider Collective came in at the end as well. So that was good.
Did they have anything that they wanted to add at all?
No, they're just saying we came in to help you weave all of these energies together so they may be sent out in the proper strength and intensity and order and alchemy to the people.
That's beautiful because I was seeing almost like a recoding of the DNA structures or the webs or I'm not quite sure what it was, but they were adding energies, like different color energies to them. And there was also like a purification of the violet flame that came in and went through the whole body. And then it was almost like after they had these strands with the energies placed over them in different colors, they were weaving them together and then they were coating them. So it was very interesting to just, okay, good. Yeah, it was very interesting to experience that all. And and it was so different for me because normally like when I give codes and stuff or like I really like push him out there and I'm like all like, oh no, whoa, you know, but like it was very different for me where like I could feel the strength of them, but it was just a very calm transmission, you know? So
I felt that way too. I felt the grandmothers doing this thing again where it felt very shamanic to me. You know, I think they were bringing everyone through a healing process, releasing some beliefs about the self that don't serve them in this like gentle, cleansing, kind of grandmotherly way. And that it doesn't have to be harsh, it doesn't have to hurt, but coming into helping us and you guys come into who you are with love rather than, you know, with a blast of energy.
Right. I'd love to know, for those of you watching, if there was any experiences that you had with the transmissions and the codes and the activations tonight. I'm always interested in hearing what everybody else experiences, because nobody really experiences the same, and everything is valid. Everybody's experiences are valid. So feel free, if you did experience something and you want to share, feel free to type it into the chat, because we would love to know. I'm just thinking, is there anything else? What is our card for tonight? They've been really throwing a lot of cards at me lately. It's very hard to, it's just a single card. There's so many messages that I have to get out that, well, Val just joined. I'm glad you joined, Val. What is our card for tonight? The Wise Woman of the Wonderland.
Oh, perfect.
Look at it. It's a granny sitting on a mushroom.
Oh, that's so perfect.
I love that. That's so adorable. I gotta find my little book. All right. 21. The Wise Woman of the Wonderland brings integrity to thought, word, and deed. She lets you know that as long as you're in the flow of honesty and being true to your word, she keeps you under her protection and care. When she appears as your ally, she signals the time when honesty pays off, yielding greater dividends than you expected. You'll be thankful that you remained faithful and loyal to your path. She reminds you that compromise isn't always an option. So stay true to yourself first and foremost. Although it may appear that you could lose something as a result, you can never lose what is truly yours. And that's so true. With all the divine feminine abilities and energies, you guys have that all. Mm-hmm. It may seem like you don't, but you do. You just have to call them back.
Believe that you have them. So much of what happens is they want to make you believe that you're not powerful enough and you don't have it in you and you're not worthy. You absolutely are. You are all of those things times 1 million. And anyone who's trying to say that to you, or any message that's trying to get to you that's saying that, it's a straight lie.
Exactly. The water. There's water all over my desk. The water has a message. All right. So if nobody has any questions or any experiences that they would like to share, I think we're going to close down for the day. And we want to thank you guys for joining us. And it's always a pleasure. So we will be skipping next week, and then we will be back the week after.
Yes, and if you have any questions or topics that you'd like us to talk about, just leave them in the comments or leave them in the chat and we'll get to them, and we'll definitely incorporate those things and definitely get to your questions next time we see you. And people don't usually leave us questions or requests or anything, but absolutely, if you do, next time we meet, we will bring through whoever to talk about that thing or to answer the question, because we're here for you guys.
Yep. And sometimes I feel like people are scared or to ask questions, or don't know, like they want to ask a question, but they're not really sure how to phrase it, or like, it's okay. You can ask the question, and if we'll help you get it phrased right if it's not quite clear, or if there's a better way to phrase it to get the exact answer that is out there versus like something kind of in between. We definitely want to help with that. So don't be afraid to, holler out to us. And then, of course, Maggie is always available for sessions. And your website is Maggie May.
Maggie May, MAGGIEMEI.com. My website needs some work, but you can always, if you want to reach out, if you were interested in a session, you can just email me at Maggie Estes, MAGGIEESTES @protonmail.com, and I'll get back to you if you're interested.
Okay, perfect. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining. We love you, and we hope you guys have a fantastic week, and we will